will be the host of today's GIC talk. Before we get started, please turn off your cell phone like this or switch it to silent mode. Thank you. Do you remember the place where the GIC Day was held on Monday, October 19th? The Asian Cultural Complex is the answer. Because of its outside appearance, I felt the inside building design would be great. I am impressed with the visual design and I'm really looking forward to visiting that building when it opens. Today, my first guest talk is entitled Urban Design and the Future of Gwangju, which helps with understanding urban areas designed by people. Here introduce the concept of urban design and how good and bad urban design affect our health, safety, and the country's economics. Also, he will recommend design ideas for the city of Gwangju. Remember, if you have any questions to ask the speaker, feel free to write them on a slip of paper. If you didn't receive a slip, please raise your hand and a GIC volunteer will give it to you. These questions can be asked during the Q&A session. Thank you for joining us today, and please welcome Furlane with applause.
First, I'd like to welcome everyone here today to the GIC talk, and I'd like to thank Dr. Shin, Joey Nunez, and the GIC staff for making this talk and giving me this opportunity to do that. All right, today we're going to talk about urban design and the future of Gwangju City. Now, as we look at Gwangju City, it is the 6th largest city in South Korea. It has 1.5 million people, and it is located in a very competitive environment in Northeast Asia. Some of the largest cities in the world are located in this region. Tokyo, Seoul, Beijing, Hong Kong, Shanghai are all world-class cities that Gwangju is going to be overshadowed by in the next century. Now, Gwangju is known for many things: sports, culture, food, scholarship, education, and political history. But is it known as a city of people? And is it known as a city that's well designed to enhance humanity and to promote the welfare of people? So, as we look into the future and we look at the competitive environment that Gwangju is in, we have to ask ourselves, what can the citizens of Gwangju, citizens of Korea, do to make Gwangju a more competitive city? What can we do that is original, unique, and attractive to the citizens of Korea and to the citizens of the world? And the bigger cities have taller skyscrapers, they have more money, maybe they have more international recognition, but maybe one of the things that Gwangju will be able to do in the future that those cities have overlooked or failed to do is to properly manage their economy and their people and their environment through good urban design. So I believe that one aspect that could put Gwangju ahead of all the major cities in the region is to design it through good urban design for people and to enhance people's experience in this city. So in order to do that, in order to achieve that, we have to follow the examples of other cities around the world and try to incorporate that into this region and this culture. And one way to do that is through urban design. And what is urban design? Urban design is about making connections between people and places movement and urban form, nature, and the built fabric of society. Urban design draws together the many strands of placemaking, environmental stewardship, social equity, and economic viability into the creation of places with a distinct beauty and identity. Now, when most people think of a city or a big city, they think of skyscrapers and automobiles, maybe neon lights, tourist attractions, modern architecture. But that's really not what a city is. A city is about people and how people interact. That interaction is something that's facilitated best by good urban design. So whenever you travel to a city outside of Gwangju, look at how the city is designed and ask yourself, how do you feel living and interacting in that city? Do you feel safe? Do you feel healthy? Can you get to point A to point B efficiently? Are the people of that city happy? These are some of the questions that urban design asks and tries to solve through good planning and good architecture and talking with people who actually live in the community. Now, some people might ask, urban design, why should we care? Why is it important? What is it that it can do for you on a personal level or on a local level? So first, good urban design can help promote your safety. When traffic and public transportation are properly organized, people feel safe on the streets. They can get to a bus, they can cross the street, they can take their children and their friends to public places without worrying about being hit by a car or encountering dangerous things in the environment. So good urban design can create an environment that is safe for people to travel in and to walk in. It typically means visible signs that are well understood by all the people in the community, sidewalks that have enough room for people who walk and bike, for people with strollers or carts or people traveling in groups. Also, urban design takes into account how the city looks and how people feel in terms of crime and their safety in the city overall. So is the city well lit? Do people feel safe walking at night, in the afternoon, night, evening, trying to get where they need to go? That's an important part of urban design, the lighting. A second aspect of urban design that we should care about is the environment. If you look at Beijing, one of the things they're struggling with is overdevelopment. And this overdevelopment and rapid development has led to pollution and congestion. Beijing has some of the highest pollution rates in the world. And as much as they have tried to counter this by having less factory work and less automobiles, they still have one of the most polluted cities in the world. This is an urban design problem, and it could be easily solved by having automobiles and public transportation working more efficiently to get people from point A to point B within their city. A lot of it will have to do with encouraging their citizens to give up automobile transportation and use public transportation, bicycles, or walking. Now, it's interesting, for thousands of years, most people got around to their cities and their neighborhoods either by horse or by walking. The problem with this is that horses have their own form of pollution. It was estimated that in the early 20th century, late 19th century, that the horses in New York produced as much as 1 million pounds of manure every day. So when the automobile came along, people thought it was cleaner and more environmentally friendly. And with the advent of cheap automobile transportation, more and more people began driving cars. So compared to a city filled with horses that's polluted with that and the smell of farm animals within a city, the automobile looked like a great option. It was something, it was an alternative that many people chose, and soon both walking and the use of horses was eliminated from transportation within cities. The problem that we are encountering now is that as the population increases, you cannot give everyone an automobile. The American myth was that every single person should have their own private automobile. Now, in the American Midwest, that might function a little bit, but when you start increasing the population from 100,000 people in a city to 500,000 to 2 million to 10 million, everyone having their own private transportation is a social disaster, economic disaster. It has led to as many as 1 million deaths per year from automobile accidents around the world. The United States has, I believe, on average 33,000 deaths per year from auto accidents. India has over 100,000 deaths per year from auto accidents. So the numbers are just enormous. And when you look at some other statistics about deaths and what people die from, flu, Ebola, typhoons, the automobile dwarfs all of those problems in terms of the number of people it kills every year. So when we look at the environmental impact of automobiles, urban design is a way to change that environmental impact from something that is negative to something that is positive. All right, physical and mental health. One of the side effects of an automobile-dependent society and city is that people's physical and mental health has been changed. If you're sitting in an automobile for 3-4 hours a day and crammed into a city that is poorly designed, it's going to affect your physical and your mental health. People are going to find that they need to set aside time specifically to exercise. They're going to have to specifically look at the kind of foods they eat because the environment they live in is not conducive to their physical or mental health. Economic stability. One of the things that urban design can do is bring small businesses into a smaller area and promote small businesses within the community. The major businesses in the United States, in Korea, or in any large country can only hire so many people. Samsung can only hire so many people within the country. IBM, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they can only hire so many people. Mid-sized and small businesses have to do the other hiring. And actually, in terms of total number of employees, independent businesses and small and mid-sized businesses hire more people than the big corporations. So one thing urban design can do is create economic stability by encouraging entrepreneurship in small and mid-sized businesses. Fifth, social place and identity. If you design a city that people enjoy living in, that's environmentally friendly, that's safe, that promotes physical and mental health, and that's economically stable, people want to stay there. They want to live there for their entire lives. Tourists will come and visit your city because it has these characteristics. When you look at places in Italy and France that are over 500 years old, people will pay thousands of dollars in airfare to go see those cities and visit those cities and experience that culture. There's no reason you can't bring those benefits that Europe has known for thousands of years to Asia, and specifically Korea, to make every city a city that people want to visit, a city with character, a city with culture, a city that people enjoy living in, a city that you're proud of. So this is why we should care about urban design, because it affects all of these points that are unique and influential upon our lives. Okay. Now, the United States is an automobile-centric country. For hundreds of years, as I mentioned earlier, for hundreds of years people traveled by either walking or horse-drawn carriage or by horse directly. Then with the advent of the automobile and the promotion of the idea of every citizen having their own private transportation and the increase in population, what we saw in the United States over a period of 75 years was the construction of highways and cities that facilitated the automobile. And what happened was cities that were oriented around people suddenly became oriented around transportation, specifically the car. So this continued almost nonstop until the late 1950s, when a woman named Jane Jacobs, who lived in New York City, she was a Canadian-born American. She was a journalist, and she lived in New York. And what was happening was that they were going to put a major highway through New York City. It was going to destroy communities. It was going to destroy parks. It was going to uproot entire neighborhoods. She wasn't an engineer. She wasn't an urban planner. She wasn't an architect. She was just a regular citizen who lived in New York, who believed in her communities and who believed that people should come first, not automobiles, not highways. Robert Moses was a construction developer and planner. He was simply carrying on a tradition that had been going on for over 50 years of building more highways, cutting through cities, building wider highways, and building everything around the automobile. So these two philosophies collided in New York City in 1958. And what Jane Jacobs did is she stood up and she said, no, we don't want this development. We don't want these type of highways coming through New York City. What we want to do is keep our parks and our communities separate from the highways and the automobiles. And one of the reasons New York has the character and popularity that it has today is because she was able to stand in opposition to Robert Moses' proposed developments. This battle between people and automobiles has been going on for the last 100 years. And this is probably one of the most popular conflicts in this ongoing war. Now what's interesting is that although Jane Jacobs won this battle and was able to preserve parts of New York, the overall war is being lost, or has been lost, at least up until now, the 21st century, when Americans in particular are starting to reawaken to the need of putting people first. So they're reading her books, they're resurrecting the ideas that she's been talking about, in trying to put people first in all of our cities. So although she was able to save parts of New York, large parts of Chicago and Los Angeles lost out. Los Angeles especially lost out to the automobile. Huge highways, lots of congestion, a lot of people don't feel safe in the city, they don't feel comfortable in the city. So, as we look at this, one of the things we see is that Jane Jacobs inspired a future generation of urban planners to adopt her ideas about putting people first. She resurrected what people had known throughout Europe before the automobile. She resurrected the idea that a city should be environmentally friendly and that it should promote the health and character of its people. And it's that idea that I believe can transform Gwangju City. So, what's the future of Gwangju? What urban design principles can we adopt in this city that will make it a healthy city, an environmentally friendly city, a safe city. And there's probably 10 or 20 things any city can do, but here's 3 fundamental urban design ideas that can be implemented in Gwangju that are cost effective, that are being adopted throughout the world, and have a record of improving the quality of the city that they're adopted in. So first, bicycles and bike paths. Gwangju has lots of bike paths. The river has bike paths stretching for miles. It's good for exercise. But another aspect of using a bicycle is not just exercise. It's also having it as a primary means of transportation. So although you can use a bike to exercise, other cities are finding out that you can use a bicycle to eliminate the automobile altogether, or at least decrease the number of people that are driving. So one of the cities that's adopted bicycles and bike paths is Copenhagen in Denmark. Now this is probably one of the most popular examples, and maybe some of you have visited this city. But in 2012, studies showed that 36% of all people studying and working in Copenhagen use their bikes. It's a phenomenal percentage. It means that those people are either not using automobiles or they're using their automobiles less. 1.27 million kilometers have been traveled. 75% cycle throughout the year. 52% of all Copenhageners cycle to their place of work and education every day. There are 650,000 bicycles in Copenhagen and about 550,000 inhabitants, compared to 125,000 cars. So about 5.2 bikes for each car. So imagine adopting this policy in Gwangju, and imagine how it would transform the city. One of the problems I see in Gwangju is that there's a lot of automobiles, but the infrastructure hasn't really been designed to incorporate all of these automobiles. And what you can do to reduce the number of people driving is to build more bike paths that are specifically designed not just for exercise, but for as a primary form of public transportation. And just to demonstrate how effective this can be and how popular it is, I'm going to play a short video that will show the video number 1. The top 10 cities around the world that have incorporated
top 10
bikes.
cycling-friendly cities. We all love riding our bike, and it's even better when we feel safe. Last year, the Copenhagenized design company surveyed 150 cities worldwide and ranked them to find the most cycling-friendly city, using criteria like infrastructure, facilities, and political factors to judge them. Here are their top 10 based on their findings. Berlin. 13% of Berliners choose the bicycle to get around, which is a healthy number for a city of its size. While it may not be the most easy city to get around in terms of infrastructure, the fact that people of all ages are willing to cycle provides incentive for change to be made. Malmö. Sweden's third largest city, scores highly in the Copenhagenized Index thanks to numerous campaigns to get people thinking about how they get around the city. Neat touches like air pumps next to cycleways and railings to hold on to at red lights gives people all the support they need to ditch the car completely. It's these incentives that have driven the bicycle population in Malmö to 30%. Eindhoven. The Netherlands as a nation has cycling firmly integrated into its daily life, which is why 3 of its cities are in this top 10. Eindhoven's most striking feature for cyclists is its revolutionary floating roundabout, suspended above the original traffic circle to completely separate bikes and cars. This alone shows the rest of the world what can be done in terms of cycling-friendly infrastructure. Antwerp. Antwerp, like many cities in Belgium, is passionate about cycling. It's the departure point for the Spring Classics Scheldeprijs, hosts numerous cyclocross races, even saw the Tour de France pass through in 2010. This is reflected by the number of Antwerp residents that go by bike, 16%. The government is also backing cycling. Large investment has gone into separated highways and bike parking in recent years. Nantes. Nantes has been the backdrop to its fair share of Tour de France history, but for the other 49 weeks of the year, Nantes takes cycling as a mode of transport very seriously. While the modal share stands only at just over 5%, Schemes like Bike Loop, the city's bicycle scheme, which is now in its 6th year, means the foundations are there to support the gradually increasing number of citizens that are making the switch to 2 wheels. Bordeaux. The second French city in this list is leading the way in France when it comes to attitudes about cycling, according to the Copenhagen Eyes Index. The installation of a tramway system in recent years has made the prospect of cycling in the city more appealing. That, along with a good system of cycle lanes and the VCA bicycle share scheme, means that Bordeaux earns its right as the leader in French bicycle mobility. Seville. Back in 2006, just 0.5% of Seville used the bike to get around. The change since then has been meteoric, with 80 kilometres of cycling infrastructure built in 12 months, like these segregated bike lanes. Plus, the implementation of a bike share scheme has seen a 6.5% increase in regular cyclists in the city. Utrecht. Utrecht already has cycling culture deeply embedded in its roots, and this has been recognised by the World Tour. It hosted the finish of the second stage of the 2010 Giro d'Italia and will be the location for the Tour de France Grand Depart in 2015. Separated bike paths combined with widespread public acceptance of cycling makes it easy to understand why 1/3 of all journeys in the city are made by bike. Copenhagen. The Danish capital has been a great city to ride a bike in for several years, thanks to sensible infrastructure to aid the movement of cyclists around the city. That, combined with ambitious government goals to make the city the greenest in the world, makes Copenhagen an interesting case study in urban design. Amsterdam. Amsterdam ticks all the boxes when it comes to making a city as bike-friendly as possible. 57% of people use their bike in Amsterdam on a daily basis, and the infrastructure is in place to transport them safely. There are about 4 times more bikes than cars in the city, and many of the roads are restricted to 30 kilometres an hour to produce a relaxed flow of traffic. Here at GCN, we'd love it if all cities were like this. How cycling-friendly is your town? What can be done to improve it? Let us know what you think down in the comments.
If you're looking for cycling how-to videos, well, we've got a whole host for you here at GIC.
So there was 10 examples of how cities are bikes are being used throughout the world, 10 different cities to decrease automobile use, increase the safety of its citizens, and all of those cities have invested 1/10 of what you would invest for automobiles. You can invest to make your city better just through bicycles and encouraging people to get out into their community and out of their cars and into their city. So if this idea was adopted in Gwangju, what would it look like, and what would the impact be in Gwangju? How many people would switch from automobiles to bikes if it was done properly? How much pollution would be reduced? How much safety, people's safety would be increased? Another aspect to consider for Gwangju's future is buses, and more streets just for buses. So as more and more private automobiles are taken off the street, more and more people bike, it creates more space for buses. So what you can produce is dedicated bus lanes. So right now, I've ridden the bus in Gwangju for about the past year, and it's very efficient, it's very fast, but a lot of times it's overcrowded. A lot of times you might have to wait 30 or 45 minutes for a bus, and a lot of times the buses get stuck in traffic, defeating the purpose of taking public transportation as a means of a quicker form of getting around the city. So one of the things that cities are starting to do around the world is cut out whole sections of roads and have them for public transportation only. Just bikes, just taxis, just buses. So what would happen if this was implemented in Gwangju, dedicated bus lanes? Well, hopefully it would encourage more riders. It would discourage people from buying cars if they already know that the bus is going to work just as well and be just as efficient. Taking more cars off the road means less pollution. And with dedicated bus lanes, people can get from point A to point B quicker and safely. So one excellent example of implementing dedicated streets just for buses and creating a system that benefits all of society is the Transmilenio in Bogota, Colombia. And we're going to play a short video now of that.
Rush hour in Bogota, Colombia. Sleek red buses glide past bumper-to-bumper traffic. The buses are part of a novel public transportation system called Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT. Over the last decade, developing cities around the world have been adapting bus systems like Bogota's for 3 reasons. They cut down traffic, they're cheaper than building subways, and they improve the environment.
I use el Transmilenio because it's much quicker to arrive at the university or work or whatever place. Because traffic jams in Bogota are impossible. To arrive at the university on the Transmilenio, it takes me approximately half an hour. But by car, it takes me about an hour and a half or 2 hours, so it's much quicker.
Bogota's system, called Transmilenio, opened in 2001 and was one of the first in the world. It operates like an above-ground subway, with isolated lanes like tracks and buses like trams.
I didn't use public transportation for precisely that reason, but it was very disorganized. I used my own vehicle. Now I use it more frequently, because it takes less time.
Environmental experts say curbing the rise of greenhouse gas emissions from the developing world is crucial in the fight to combat global warming. In Bogota, there are now 7,000 fewer buses on the roads, and the amount of bus fuel used and the greenhouse gas emissions generated have dropped by nearly 50%.
With Transmilenio, I can avoid using my vehicle and spending money on gasoline, and I arrive much faster to my destination.
The Transmilenio is the only transit system in the world allowed to generate and sell carbon credits to countries that exceed their greenhouse gas emission limits. Bogota's system is now more advanced than many transit systems in more developed countries.
So the Bogota system is considered a success story. And places like London and Brazil are looking at ways to implement something similar. Every city has to take into account their own road infrastructure and space available, but I think something like this would be a good idea for Gwangju to encourage more ridership for buses, to increase the green impact of the city, and to provide a safe environment for people to travel. So the Transmillennial system opened around 2000, has 12 lines, about 112 kilometers, and since that time it has had 3.5 billion passengers since its opening. And it's probably considered better than anything that is currently in the United States or other developed countries around the world. All right, the last thing we're going to look at is radial apartments. Okay, one of the aspects that we see in Japan, South Korea, and China is the black grid housing apartment urban design structure. Many people live in these apartments and in this design, and I think for the current situation they serve their purpose. But for the future, in order for Gwangju City to be a city of people that is environmentally friendly and promotes the health of people, Asia as a whole, especially China, but also in Gwangju, is going to have to shift from the block grid design to the radial design. Now, the reason the radial design is important to switch to this venue, and some of the other minor details still have to be worked out, but as human beings, we need to be integrated into our environment and into our society. And what poor urban design can do, whether it's in New York or Beijing or here, is it can separate you from your community, and it can separate you from your environment, and it can make it difficult for you to participate in your society. Now, if you look at the radial design in the center, it's more open, it's more environmentally friendly, it's more conducive to community participation. Why? Because by setting things in a circle and opening things up, it allows for the flow of air and for the flow of sunlight. Some of these apartments on the left, if they're facing the south, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. They're going to get sunlight all day. The apartments that are facing to the north are going to be cut off from the sunlight. So not only are they just facing another apartment building, they're facing a shadow for most of the day. So that part of their environment is always dark. It's always shielded from the sunlight. This has an effect upon our health. Studies have shown that people need a certain amount of sunlight every day. They need, even if it's just coming through the window of your apartment, you need to see that the sun is out. It affects your mood and your overall health. So what the radial design does is it allows for all the apartment buildings to get the maximum amount of sunlight during the day. Secondly, the radial design has at its center either businesses or a park. So if the developers choose to put businesses in the center, you can put in hair salon, English academy, supermarket, taekwondo academy, computer room. And there's a whole host of businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, can all be put at the center of a radial design. So people can get out of their apartments and they can walk or bike to the center. They could bike around the neighborhood for design. And for people who still want to drive cars, a parking deck can be placed underneath the center of this type of design for automobiles to be placed and separated from the community. An example of what this would look like, say, along the river here in Gwangju, instead of square and grid, you'd have the radial apartments design located and spaced out along the river, giving everyone a good view and a good amount of sunlight. But it doesn't just have to be near the river, it can be anywhere within the city. So the radial design, I think, is the future of apartment block design in the 21st century. It's more environmentally friendly, it's more conducive to public health, it's more conducive to reducing greenhouse gases by allowing people to simply walk to attain their basic needs that can be put at the center of this design. My hope, especially, is that China will do this because they have the greatest impact, along with the United States and India, upon climate. They emit the most greenhouse gases, and if you ever get a chance to look at a map of China, you'll see that they have just miles and miles of this grid block apartment housing structure, and trying to mesh that design with more and more automobiles in the city. So it's something that they're going to have to solve soon. It's a problem they're going to have to solve soon. The good news is that the president of China originally announced about a month ago that he no longer wants modern architects coming into China, designing things, and then leaving without taking into consideration the nation and the community that their architecture and design is going to impact. He wants more of a community-based design, and I think it's something that's going to affect the entire region. So this concept could possibly transform the way we think about our living arrangements and society and environment. Lastly, Gwangju is a city for people. I believe this is something that can be done without a large amount of money or worldwide notoriety. There are small cities throughout the world that are attractive. They are places that people want to live in and stay in their entire lives because they are environmentally friendly, because people enjoy living there, they feel safe, and they feel there's a sense of community. So I believe that if we use urban design to make the city a city for people, we can compete with Shanghai, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Seoul. So some of the things to consider is to make Gwangju less, avoid modernism as just a means of making a city look better. Skyscrapers and cars do not make a city. People make a city. Another thing to consider is how urban design can increase democracy and participation in the community, listening to the needs of all of its citizens, young, old, male, female, abled, disabled, children, and adults, making a city and designing the city for everyone. And say yes to environmentally friendly urban design, economically friendly urban design, and socially friendly urban design. Every city should have a dedicated urban design team that understands the needs of its citizens and the needs of its people. That is what I believe is the hope and the direction Gwangju should take for the 21st century, using urban design to create a city that promotes people. Thank you.